Lord God, I know this doesn't influence me morally. Well, I might feel like going out and bombing Universal Studios, so I guess it does. Just, please don't let my hopes and dreams be crushed. And all the LBT squad said, Amen. Hey there, LBT Squad, I'm your host Alex Pop, and hey, today's the day that all the hype has led to. As my followers know, The Land Before Time played a big part, the majority in fact, in shaping my childhood. Since the age of 4, I could never get enough of these movies. I always leapt for joy every year when another one was announced, and a number of them still hold up extraordinarily well. So it was pretty depressing to think that the franchise concluded on such a terrible note in 2007 with The Land Before Time 13, The Wisdom of Friends. But then 8 years later, from out of nowhere, came the announcement of a 14th film, and when I came across the news, I went bonkers. I was so ecstatic to see the franchise get another shot. The movie that we've been anticipating for all of 2015 is The Land Before Time 14, Journey of the Brave. It felt so surreal when I finally got to pop in the DVD and start the movie. My heart was pounding when the Universal logo came in, and I got goosebumps when the title appeared. I was that excited. This movie's existence is the reason for why I started this channel to begin with. When I heard about it, I was prompted to bring longtime fans together as a community in an effort to show the industry the enthusiasm that we still have, and possibly help Journey of the Brave start a new winning streak for the series. So did it pay off? Well, that depends on the two factors that would make it pay off. The first answer would be absolutely, because I've had an amazing experience being able to talk to fellow fans, even some from across seas, and to get into contact with cast members of the franchise. And reaching out to so many people has become the best part of bringing this show to YouTube. But then the second question that comes with it would be, is the movie good? Let me put it to you like this. The way the entire franchise has gone down from the very beginning to right now is comparable to a really cliched sports drama. Let's say it's about a race car driver. This guy is a racing legend. He has a multitude of devoted fans and a long list of wins and top finishes. But as the story proceeds, an accident happens, and let's just say he loses an eye. I don't know if a man with one eye would be allowed to continue racing, probably not, but this is just an example. So he loses an eye, but he's still determined to continue on racing. As he does, he pulls off a few efforts that are certainly less than spectacular, but despite his limitations, he still qualifies. But then, at the end of the second act, he goes through a really severe failure that convinces him to quit altogether. Some time goes by, but even then, the fans want him back, and the people closest to him show more support than ever before. So he returns to the sport and manages to once again impress everyone with a single top finish, and while he may not have taken first place, it's still an applause-worthy comeback. If you see what I'm getting at here. What does this mean? That The Land Before Time 14 Journey of the Brave was great! Yep. Granted, while watching this movie, it was very easy for me to look for the light, but I still kept an eye out for flaws, and while there are some that are clear and present, they're outnumbered 3-1 by every enjoyable and nostalgic element this movie delivered. In a small sense, I went into this movie in a similar way that I went into Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, as The Force Awakens explained nothing about Luke Skywalker's absence and what was going on with him. The trailers for Journey of the Brave said little or nothing about why Littlefoot's father is missing and why he isn't returning to the Great Valley on schedule. And that drew me more into the movie before I even got started with it. And I'm not going to give away much more than what you probably already know if you haven't seen the movie. This review is 100% spoiler-free. The first compliment I have to make on the movie itself, believe it or not, is the narration, now from Tony Amendola. It seems strange to say this, but this is the best opening narration in any Land Before Time movie. Instead of only introducing us to the dinosaur world as usual, it also generously gives us a recap of the events of the original movie as well as the Great Longneck Migration. Isn't that refreshing? Not only does it give an explanation to those unfamiliar with the previous movies for why the events of this movie are occurring, but it also gives us longtime fans a sense that they have respect for what has happened before, and they're going to try to build on that. Immediately, I was hooked. I thought, man, one scene in and already this movie's 10 times better than the last one. So as it turns out, Bronn visits the Great Valley with his herd every year on the day of the spring equinox, which you might think is Treasure Day, but actually the phrase Treasure Day is never used at any point in the movie. Naturally, Littlefoot spends all year looking forward to his dad's arrival, but as the herd enters the Great Valley, his dad is nowhere to be seen. The loony Nonthronicus, nicknamed Wild Arms, informs him and his grandparents that when they were near the Fire Mountain, the volcano erupted, and Bronn managed to get everyone to safety, but went missing in all the chaos. Littlefoot proposes that they go find him, but Wild Arms insists that he's not going through all the treacherous places they went through to get to the Great Valley, and upon listing them off, inadvertently gives Littlefoot the directions to the Fire Mountain. Grandma and Grandpa say that they need to wait until the volcano is inactive again, but Littlefoot is unwilling to wait, and proclaims to Sarah, Ducky, Petrie, and Spike that he's off to find his father ASAP. Something that sets this movie apart from the other ones is that Littlefoot seems fully aware of the incredible risk that he's taking, so much so that he doesn't drag his friends along for the trip. He leaves the Great Valley alone, but they all catch up with him and insist that they help him on his journey. This movie has many great character moments like that. It shows how the five of them connect, and it embodies their personality traits much better than The Wisdom of Friends did, and it wouldn't be a Land Before Time movie without that. So I was able to latch on, and I felt like I was having a new adventure with these characters for the first time in ages. And as their journey unfolds, there is conflict that develops between them too, and it's handled very well. Like I said, I don't want to give much away, but it has to do with Sarah always thinking that there's a better way to take on the obstacles they face, but it always slows them down. And it aggravates Littlefoot more than usual, because this isn't just a search for more food or water. His dad's life could be in jeopardy. It gets to the point where Littlefoot and Sarah have one of those really heated arguments that they occasionally get into. And the way these scenes play out is believable, and there's even one part that kind of made me go like this. We have some new characters as always. First off, there's Wild Arms. And when I first saw his design and wacky appearance on the DVD cover, I thought, is he just going to be basically one of the Yellow Bellies? But actually, there are a few moments with him that had me chuckling. Yeah, he's a goofball, but at least he doesn't just spend the entire movie making noise. Like when he first introduces himself, he's like, "They call me Wild Arms, but I've never had any idea why." Oh, that makes sense. And Damon Wayans Jr.'s delivery sounds relatively natural. The Pteranodon, Edda, voiced by Reba McEntire, she's alright. She does have an eccentric charm, but I didn't find her particularly memorable. I'm just glad that her character isn't pointless, as she turns out to be the one who knows Bronn's whereabouts. As a lot of you are probably wondering, this movie takes place after the TV series. And of course you know what that means. We've got Ruby and Chomper in this movie. Well, sort of. Ruby and Chomper are unfortunately sidelined in this movie. The only thing that Chomper gets to do is help Grandpa Longneck and Mr. Threehorn find the gang by sniffing out any trace of them, and even then, Wild Arms is already leading them there from memory. Why couldn't Ruby and Chomper just go on the journey with the rest of the gang? It is disappointing that they don't have much of a role. Now let's talk about the voice acting. Returning to their roles are Aria Noel Curzon as Ducky, Andy McAfee as Sarah, Jeff Bennett as Petrie, Rob Paulson as Spike, Miriam Flynn as Grandma Longneck, and Megan Strange as Ruby, and they're all as great as always. It's particularly fascinating how Aria Curzon and Annie McAfee have stayed fit for their roles from childhood to adulthood. But as time has gone by, there are also a few replacements. Felix Avisha shines as Littlefoot. He captures the innocence of the character without ever sounding whiny. And what I really liked about him is that he made Littlefoot sound slightly older, leading me to imagine that Littlefoot might have reached that point. Felix, I know you're subscribed to me, so if you're watching this, good job. The one that really surprised me was Isaac Ryan Brown as the voice of Chomper, as little screen time as he has. Here's the thing, and please don't take this the wrong way. Most of the time, I have nothing against colorblind casting, but when I watched a video starring Isaac Brown, I was a little worried that his accent would get in the way of legitimately sounding like Chomper. But against any odds there may have been, he nailed it. I heard little to no difference. So, bravo! As for the elephant in the room, I knew that it was going to be very difficult to find great replacements for the distinctive voices of the late Kenneth Mars and John Ingle, so I had it in mind to be lenient on my criticisms in that regard. With that said, George Ball was actually pretty good as Mr. Threehorn. Sure, his voice isn't exactly the same, but he did speak with the same gruff inflections, so I was able to buy him as Sarah's dad. But the one I really had a hard time overlooking was Barry Bostwick as Grandpa. I saw no resemblance at all, and a lack of an attempt to capture the solemn spirit of Kenneth Mars. So that's going to take some getting used to. Another voice that didn't return was actually Tress MacNeille. When Ducky and Petrie's mom spoke, I assumed that it was Tress MacNeille. But when the credits rolled, I learned that it was Megan Strange as Ducky's mom and Andy McAfee as Petrie's mom. I give them credit for not making me think I was hearing different voices, but why didn't Tress MacNeille come back? I'm guessing they thought they'd get someone who was already on set who could pull off their voices okay, considering how Ducky and Petrie's moms only have one line each. But that brings me to a question regarding the story of why the two parents don't join Grandpa Longneck and Mr. Threehorn on the search for their kids, or Grandma Longneck for that matter. In terms of the animation, for such a long gap in between films, it looks remarkably consistent with the previous few movies. It's even more enhanced than what you see in the trailer, and some of the wide shots during the kids' journey look great. Now, there is CGI in this movie, but there were a few instances when the merging of the CGI and the traditional animation was actually kind of cool, such as the volcano's eruption in Wild Arms' flashback, and these wavy reflections from a pool on a cave wall, the kind that you see in an indoor swimming pool. But other times, it's almost painfully transparent. There's a scene where Sharp Teeth are chasing the gang and they're smashing their way through a thin tunnel and there are all these CGI rocks falling, and I was like, oh, that looks terrible. But if I'm able to praise any use of CGI in a Land Before Time movie, then something is definitely right. Also, major credit should be given for the decision not to computer generate the entire movie, which is a common occurrence. When a studio is bringing back a franchise that hasn't been around for a while, and it has a certain type of animation, they'll often just go the easy route and CG it all. They did that with Thomas the Tank Engine and a few of the Swan Princess sequels, so I applaud the fact that the animators for Journey of the Brave avoided that trend, because if they didn't, I probably wouldn't have even seen this movie. There were some decent Sharptooth encounters too, like when the kids are being chased by the Tyrannuses through a maze of rock formations. It's relatively exciting. And there's more to it than just dumping rocks on the Sharpteeth. We saw Sarah do so in the trailer, but it's actually just kind of a finishing touch. The problem with these scenes is when the protagonists are hiding from Sharpteeth, and the Sharpteeth get distracted by a Deus Ex Machina animal that happens to be wandering through the area. I wouldn't have minded it the first time if it wasn't for the fact that they do it again. It's a real cop-out when that happens. The songs, for the most part, are pretty good. In the opening song titled Today's the Day, Littlefoot and the gang sing about what they've been planning for a long time for the day. And being on the day that I'd been looking forward to for a long time myself, I had to nod my head and go, yeah, that sums up the feel of today for me too. The Hot and Stinky song, well, there were parts of it that made me grin, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me. It's just the kids singing about how coating themselves in stinkweed is going to keep Sharpteeth from coming across their scent, and I just kind of sat there and thought, is this really warranting of a song? Better Off Alone was okay, although it reminded me a bit too much of a song from earlier in the franchise. And the one that was advertised everywhere, Look for the Light, I really liked. I found it kind of funny how, as Edda is singing to Littlefoot about staying optimistic, she refers to him as Mr. As for the score, the movie unfortunately lacks the old James Horner theme. But it does have a few Michael Tavera tracks that we remember really well, as well as some very good new ones, such as the piece that accompanies the sequence where Littlefoot and his friends float through the cave. The first 40 minutes of this movie are very well paced, but in the second half there are some scenes that didn't really feel all that necessary. There's one sequence where these little teensy dinosaurs are hailing Petrie because he accidentally knocked down fruit for them, and probably because they share his broken English. It only seems like it's there to please the kids in the audience, though honestly, I think I enjoyed the scene more than I should have. Also, the ending kind of left me wanting more, and I mean that in both a positive and a negative sense. I'll get into the negative later, but on the positive side, it made me hope that there are more of these movies on the way. One last nitpick I can make, though, is on the title. Why is the movie called Journey of the Brave? It wasn't like a prominent line or anything, and it doesn't really distinguish the movie from the rest because they're almost all about Littlefoot and his friends being brave and going on a journey. It's kind of like titling one of them The Land Before Time 20, The Adventure of the Gang. I mean, they could have just gone with something as simple as The Land Before Time 14, The Quest to Fire Mountain, and that subtitle would have made it easily distinguishable. In the end, this movie did the most important thing right. It immersed me back into the world of The Land Before Time and made me feel like I was having a 10-year reunion. With fictional characters instead of high school mates. Even with some contrived moments and not enough Ruby and Chomper, it's the best Land Before Time sequel in a while. Well, the only Land Before Time sequel in a while, but you see what I mean. It was very faithful to the characters, I was entertained, I was heartwarmed, and it brought out the child in me in that certain way that only The Land Before Time can do. I award The Land Before Time 14 Journey of the Brave a B+. If you're a hardcore LBT fan, you will not be disappointed. And if you have a family, bring the kids for a movie night. It's an excellent alternative to Norm of the North. I'm ready to be back in that time where I can always look forward to another one of these movies each year. So Universal, bring on number 15. I will be continuing soon with a spoiler review where I go into further detail about stuff that I liked and disliked about Journey of the Brave, so stay tuned for that. And also, let me know what you thought of the movie. So leave a brief review as well as your letter grade in the comments below, and have them featured in my spoiler review. That's a wrap for now. If you liked this and you want to see more, slap the like button, subscribe for future videos, and follow us on Facebook. Thanks for watching. I'm your host Alex Pop, and welcome back Land Before Time.